And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Skyda. He is in the baby blue, and he is playing the one and only Protoss to the west of this particular map versus his opponent in the pink trunks, the one and only Jake. He is playing Zerg to the south.
So the differences between these players and like a Grandmaster League player is their decision-making on the fly is that they will, a Grandmaster League player will be able to make a decision immediately and be like, he'll address the situation, he'll weigh the con and pros, decide and think about like 10 different options and then choose the right one in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's actually like how a Grandmaster would think. These players will actually sit back, they will still think about the options, they will still weigh them up and down, but it'll take a lot longer for them to do that. But still, these are two pretty good players. I mean, they are mid-masters, which isn't horrible. I mean, I'm not that far ahead of them either, and I don't consider myself horrible, and I'm sure these guys don't consider themselves horrible either. So they do have a lot to go in the rest of the tournament, but this is going to be a good test of their skill to see if they can beat someone of equal standard.
Yeah, absolutely, and this should be a fairly close matchup, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. Extractor trick was used there by Jake, and that really comes down to personal preference, I suppose, doesn't it? You see some Zerg going for the Overlord earlier, see some Zerg going for the Extractor trick. Doesn't really make a huge difference in the long run.
And we do see the Extractor going down now on 14, and we will be seeing a 14 spawning pool. Pretty old school standard build, and he will be going for a spawning pool, looking for that gas nice and early. Meanwhile, we do have Skyda with and we actually casted Skyda a couple of times in WCG. And you know, Skyda is the one you can see on the main base that walls off with this funky placement here with the Cyber Core back, including the pylon into the wall that can sometimes be a little bit dangerous if a player, well, we saw Randy playing at Skyda, if I was correctly. Can be a little bit dangerous depending on the situation. Usually you want to be having the pylon at the back. If it's at the front, it's very vulnerable to like when a Roach Ling attack comes in. Roaches can take out a pylon, which will power down both of them very, very easy, and it's in an unsafe location here.
Indeed. Close out position, always nice for a Zerg player, and Jake hanging outside of his opponent's base, doesn't want to go in just yet. At some point, he may decide to sacrifice that Overlord to get some useful information, and of course, I would imagine Skyda will try and build directly away from that. Don't have a Stalker out just yet, needless to say, so Jake is going to be able to position that Overlord quite nicely behind here and spot the expansion timing. In the meantime, Jake begins his metabolic boost, gets a couple of Zerglings out. He's not overcommitting to Zerglings just yet, getting his Queen out and going for the macro-heavy approach.
Well, the Chrono Boost is extremely high right now, 100, and it's maxed out, which is a little bit of a mistake. Even if you're 4-gating, you should be using 2 Chrono Boosts at the start of every single game. And at this point now, Skyda's only used 1, and now he's maxed out at 100. And he's gone for the Cybercore research now, should be Chrono Boosting that out immediately, because even now he's not Chrono Boosting every second precious time as that goes maximum. And he actually Chrono Boosted the Nexus, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, the thing is, he's got so much Chrono Boost, he could just be Chrono Boosting whatever. As long as he uses it, it's better than not using it.
Well, when you're at 100, you have 4 Chrono Boosts used, probably 5 or 6 by the time, and that's the research warp gate done.
Yeah.
If you use one on the Nexus now, you oversaturate your main base. Therefore, you have too many probes too fast before you expand. And now his Cybercore is going to be delayed because, well, not the Cybercore itself, but the research for the warp kit is now delayed because he threw just that single one in the Nexus. And now he's maxed out at 100 again. You know, these are fundamentals mistakes that you shouldn't really be making even at this level in Masters. Yeah,
absolutely. But whatever the case, he is going to have to hold against a very small little pokey attack right there by those Zerglings. Speed upgrade has now completed. Roach is on the way as well. As we were saying before, this pylon is extremely vulnerable to that Roach-Ling combination, and it looks like Jake has spotted that in terms of a weakness for his opponent. He thinks maybe he can snipe that off. He's probably right as well, considering the positioning of it. He wants to have a little bit of a nibble at the pylon, and he'll be able to do so. He doesn't want to get trapped by any force fields, so he will back off for the time being. 2 more gateways coming up right here for Skyda, and this is the point where, of course, he will be looking to try and expand. He's got his pylon down there. He might build his forge there as well to create a partial wall off and then go for the expansion down his natural.
And he's used 3 Chrono Boosts in a row on the Nexus, which is a really huge mistake here. It's so bad that his warp gate is so far away from finishing. He literally could have warped in 3 more sentries right now, could have expanded safely, but because of that, these Lings are denying it. He's having to Chrono Boost the sentry out because he hasn't got the warp gate research done. Chrono Boost in all 3 gateways, actually. You know, 1 Chrono Boost on the Cybercore would have saved 3 Chrono Boosts on the gateways now, now.
That was it's a very, very odd decision, honestly, and as you said, it's most likely the wrong one, and you've just given the reasoning for it. So something to consider when using your Chrono Boost, and it's one of the fundamentals of Protoss, really. You've got to learn when to use the Chrono Boost and on what. And we're going for quite an early lair right here by Jake.
Yeah, this is interesting. The layer timing is not too off. I mean, he's at a decent probe count. As we can see, 35 versus 28 at current. He does have the evolution chamber down just for safety precautions. Is going to go in and scout right now at the 7-minute mark. The overload gets there at 7:20. Sees the 2 extra gateways. Sees the expansion going down as well. Knows that this is going to be a kind of a funky 3-gate expand, you know, a little bit delayed here and there because of the use of the Chrono Boost, but he knows that he's quite safe to continue to drone up heavily. He's now getting the 2nd extract. Will need to take the 3rd and 4th very, very shortly now. He's a little bit oversaturated in the main base, but because of that extractor there, 3 go in there, and then you are quite well saturated.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. He can always move them down there without any real issues. And Jake looking pretty solid at this point. The sentries and the stock count is starting to get quite high, which I would be perhaps a little bit concerned about. Some kind of 3 gateway pressure initially, and of course, since he's only sitting on Zerglings at the moment, he has the capability to build roaches, but he hasn't got any yet. The sentry count is going to be a bit threatening, and Skyda's going to roll out right now and see what kind of damage he can do. And Jake will see that coming a mile away and will no doubt want to get away as quickly as possible. Doesn't want to be locked down by that. And he responds by building more Zerglings and building 3 spine crawlers, which will not be up in time.
Yeah, not at all. And an aggressive pylon has been thrown down now. And you can see that he's getting ready to go in and attack here, and he does have a lot of units. And Lings are pretty good against these, but the force fields need to be crucial. A little bit funky force fields there.
Yes, just a smidge.
And the spine crawlers are going to finish very, very soon.
Yep, and Jake's trying to hold them off as much as possible. He wants to get the spine crawlers over at all possible. There's a good force field to block off the ramp. Make sure that nothing comes in there. And that's 2 of the spine crawlers already busted down. Queen's in the mix as well. And the Zerglings have easily been annihilated. It looks like Skyda's just going to roll over this.
Indeed he is, and he's throwing down another gateway as well to continue the pressure. Drones are being pulled off. The sentry does go down, but these Lings and Roaches are just not enough. We have 1 Roach left.
GG, ladies and gentlemen.